gunshot rings out at a West End high school. While there were no injuries, students and parents are on edge, and police remain on high alert with officers stationed at the school today. Good afternoon. It was a terrifying end of the school day for some students at Silverthorne Collegiate in Etobicoke yesterday.
A shot was fired inside the building while some were still at school. CTV's Raheem Ladani is live in Etobicoke this afternoon to bring us the latest. Raheem.
Michelle and Nathan, good afternoon. You can see a police cruiser parked over my shoulder right in front of Silverthorne Collegiate Institute. And we're also told from students that officers are inside the building as well. This is all part of the stepped-up police presence we were told would be here today after the frightening events of a gunshot being fired inside the stairwell of the school yesterday afternoon. Some of the students we've been speaking with today say that at first they thought this wasn't fake, that when there were reports of gunfire inside the school just after 4 in the afternoon. At this time, police say 2 people who were wearing masks were seen inside the school and that there is evidence of a firearm being discharged. And so presumably there is some property damage, but thankfully no physical injuries have been reported. This incident took place while there were around 120 people inside the school. A basketball game was being played while others were preparing for grade 8 orientation later that night. Both of those were stopped and the school was placed in a lockdown for nearly 3 hours. Take a listen to what students are saying today and what police told us last night.
I was in the car with my friends and I got a text from one of my other friends saying that don't go to school if I was volunteering. And I just went, what? I was really confused.
I think I'm a bit nervous, but knowing that there's police officers, as Sam said, I think I feel fine.
The lockdown continued while officers swept the school, and the sweep was taken over by our emergency task force, who proceeded to go room by room, clearing to ensure no suspects remained and that everybody was safe inside the school. As the people were released from the school, their conditions were checked on to make sure they were okay, and they were escorted out of the school.
Apologies, the police cruiser did move over our shoulder just seconds before I said that, but there is still a police presence inside the school. Also, the school did send out a letter to parents saying that social workers are here on scene if any students wish to speak with them. As for the investigation, police have not released any information about the suspects, and so at this time we don't know their ages or if they themselves are students. Reporting live, I'm Raheem Ladani. I'll send it back to you both in studio.
All right, thank you, Raheem. A man hit by a TTC bus in the West End last night has died. It happened around 8:30 outside Ossington Station near Bloor West and Ossington. Paramedics say the victim was taken to hospital with critical injuries, but police are now saying the man died overnight. The circumstances leading up to the incident are still under investigation.
And over the last hour, Peel Police shared an update on a hit-and-run investigation in Mississauga after an elderly man was struck near Britannia Road and Huron, Ontario early this morning.
The male was in serious condition and was transported to a local hospital. He has since been transported to a trauma center with non-life-threatening injuries. The vehicle that was involved in the collision had fled the scene, and we now believe that the vehicle was a minivan, potentially gray in color, either light or dark. We're unsure at this time.
Police are asking anyone with information or dash camera footage to get in touch. And at around 8:30 last night, a pedestrian was hit at the intersection of Lakeshore Road and Huron, Ontario. They were taken to a trauma center with serious injuries. That driver stayed on the scene.
Meanwhile, in Mississauga last night, crime was top of mind at a community meeting in Lorne Park.
Hundreds of people gathering to express concern and outrage about a spike in robberies since the start of September. CTV's Janice Golding reports.
Hundreds of members of the Lorne Park community gathered at St. Bride's Anglican Church.
The residents of the community.
Resident after resident sharing concerns about rising levels of crime in their area.
As soon as we hear the glass break, I went to grab one of my daughters.
Lucy describes the horror of her home being broken into.
And then my husband was still upstairs. He was talking to the guys and they said, listen, we're not here to kill you, but we're here to get your keys.
While Ted says he's also had to deal with the aftermath of a break-in.
Listen to see what the police are doing and, take proactive steps as to maybe how we can prevent the next one.
The meeting, hosted by the Lorne Park Neighborhood Safety Group, which was formed this fall after a spike in robberies.
And I want to know
what I can do to protect my home and my family.
Police were asked to increase patrolling, to improve 911 response times, and about measures residents might take to protect themselves.
The police have one piece of this in the enforcement aspect and the prevention piece, but target hardening from communities working together through Neighborhood Watch, communities coming together in forums like this.
Meanwhile, local politicians were peppered with questions about accountability and a perceived lack of coordination between the three levels of government.
I talk to our federal and provincial officials all the time, and, really there's blame to go around.
We've asked for many things with our Solicitor General and our new Minister of Auto Theft and Bail Reform. So we have been trying to work with the federal government to improve the conditions so that we can put more criminals away and get them off our streets.
The group is calling on the federal government to initiate bail reform to keep violent criminals out of neighborhoods. It's also asking the province to hire more judges. Janice Golding, CTV News.
Still ahead, the Bank of Canada slashing its key interest rate by 0.5%, bringing it to 3.25%. It's the fifth straight cut after years of increases. We'll have details a little later in the newscast.
Well, it's now well into the holiday shopping season, and there is no end in sight for the Canada Post strike.
A war of words has erupted between the union and the Crown Corporation, and tensions remain high. CTV's John Musselman is live in Mississauga with more. John.
Well, Nathan, behind me, picketers are on the line here chanting. They're trying to keep morale up. We'll show you some video today as well. It's a cold, gray day, rainy, but the line is quite busy with people here supporting the union effort. Now, the issue with the union is they're asking for wage demands. They want some security in jobs. And they're also concerned about the use of the weekend delivery of parcel services. And Canada Post is saying what the union is asking for is unsustainable and unaffordable, and they need to move into this delivery service on the weekends, possibly using part-time workers to compete with companies like Amazon and others, Purolator and FedEx. But that seems to be one of the core issues here that they can't bridge, and that's why we are still in this position. We spoke to the union today as well as Canada Post. Here's what they had to say.
We've had the ability to deliver parcels for decades. We've had the ability to deliver them at straight time for decades on the weekends, in the evenings. But Canada Post doesn't want to have people with time values to do their work. They want to bully and intimidate and put more work than you can do in a day in somebody's truck. And then you want to get home to your family, so you run and hurt yourself. That's the sort of model they want, and that's something that we're not going to put up with.
Yeah, we need flexibility in our delivery model so that we can provide weekend delivery and good value for our customers so that we don't continue to lose parcels to the competition, because we have a national network built to deliver. That's our core business. There's only growth in one area of the delivery business, and that's in parcels. And we've been losing ground to the competition. And that's how we sustain our operations. That's how we sustain the good jobs that we provide.
And also caught in the middle here are customers and small businesses. We did speak with the representative with the Canadian Independent Federation of Businesses. They are hurting because of this strike. And right now, there appears to be no end in sight. Reporting live, I'm John Musselman. I'll send it back to you.
Thank you, John. More news in a moment, but first, let's take a live look at our city this afternoon. Certainly a soggy start to the day. The mild temperatures making for rain, but could an afternoon cool down mean tricky conditions? Let's bring in Jessica Smith with a look at what we can expect. Jess.
It is quite mild. Another above seasonal kind of muggy day out there when it comes to just how damp it feels. We get a break into the midpoint of our afternoon, but then as temperatures cool, we look for the potential of mixing and even a little flurry activity in parts of southern Ontario. We're looking at, again, another day of some rainfall warnings in extreme eastern Ontario. Snow squall watches and warnings in and around Lake Huron and Georgian Bay for anywhere from 10 to 80 centimeters. It really does depend on where you are. The closer to the water, the higher the snowfall total amounts are likely to be. It's a busy time. A lot of folks may be taking off early to do some visiting of friends and family or shopping. Just take your time and drive according always to the road and weather conditions. And if there's a warning and you don't have to head out, it's just a good idea not to. The GTA, the downtown core, they're looking at more in the way of just straight up rain. It is mild out there, and it really isn't too bad of a start to the day. We're looking at 5 through the islands. It's a little bit cloudy there, peaks of sunshine, a little more drizzle out through Pearson, but overall, it's not terrible, but it is unsettled. More on your full forecast coming up. Right now, it's back to Nathan and Michelle.
Thank you, Jess. Premiers will meet with the Prime Minister today on how to respond to Donald Trump's tariff threat.
It's their second meeting in as many weeks on this issue. CTV News Queen's Park Bureau Chief Siobhan Morris has the details.
In this afternoon's meeting between Canada's premiers and the Prime Minister, Doug Ford hopes for an action plan from Justin Trudeau.
The President says we have to tighten up the border, and all the premiers agree we have to tighten it up. We need to see a strong plan.
This is the second such meeting in just over 2 weeks. A meeting of minds after U.S. President-elect Donald Trump threatened 25% tariffs on all Canadian goods. That's unless more is done to stop the flow of migrants and drugs over the border. Ford welcomes reports of new money for the effort.
We need more CBSA officers. We need more patrol boats.
Ford is continuing his personal push, connecting with governors and congressmen and women.
It's on a daily basis. We're out there talking about the great relationship that we have with the United States, and it needs to continue.
Also appearing on Trump's favorite TV network, Fox News.
We're going to hold the Prime Minister accountable, and he needs to come up with an answer. I'd be more than happy to fly down to Florida tomorrow if the President had a few minutes. I'd be down there in a heartbeat.
The Premier insists he's not trying to overtake the Prime Minister in negotiations. Justin Trudeau is still the captain of the Team Canada approach Ford is calling for. At Queen's Park, Siobhan Morris, CTV News.
Cycle Toronto, along with 2 cyclists, have launched a charter challenge to the Ford government's legislation that paves the way for the removal of some bike lanes in the city. They're seeking an injunction to prevent the removal of bike lanes on Bloor, University, and Yonge. They say evidence shows separated bike lanes are safer for cyclists and have little effect on vehicle traffic. Bill 212 also prevents cyclists or their families from suing the province if they're injured or killed in areas where lanes are removed. Cycle Toronto says this is an implied acknowledgement of the safety risks. The Ford government says the legislation will reduce gridlock.
It was another frustrating morning commute for many TTC riders as service across the entirety of Line 1 was shut down for about half an hour with lingering delays. This marks the second time this happened this week, and the TTC is apologizing for the inconvenience. Interim CEO Greg Percy says its automated train control system it's dealing with automatic train control issues, and service is halted as a fail-safe. Percy went on to say in this statement, however, this number of ATC signaling issues so close together is unacceptable to me, and we need to understand them better in order to resolve them safely and quickly. To that end, we are working with the equipment manufacturer to conduct a thorough deep dive to determine how these incidents happened and where there's any correlation between them.
A plan to limit the number of licenses issued to private rideshare drivers in Toronto has taken a U-turn. Council had directed staff to review a number of vehicle for hire issues, including the impact on transportation and emissions. Staff came back with a recommendation to cap the number of licenses at 80,000, with electric vehicles excluded. The committee voted to refer the item back to staff for further consideration after hearing from a number of deputants on the issue.
The second pillar is a fleet that represents a supply equal to the demand. Once again, given that the rideshare apps have no repercussions in oversupplying the demand and no inherent regulatory or social responsibility in fleet management, we once again look to the City of Toronto, who are partnered with them to be accountable and do the right thing.
Uber Canada, who threatened legal action last year over this issue, says they will review the referral closely. All eyes were on the Bank of Canada this morning as it made its latest interest rate announcement.
As expected, policymakers went with a supersized cut to their key overnight rate. Officials, led by Governor Tiff Macklem, lowered the main interest rate by 50 basis points to 3.25% today. It marks a continuation of the ongoing drop after rates were held for some time at levels not seen in decades to help bring down post-pandemic inflation. And for more on this, we're joined by CTV's Scott Hurst. Scott, help us better understand the Bank of Canada's decision and what this means for us.
Yeah, Michelle, a lot of people had eyes on the Bank of Canada today for another rate announcement as the Bank of Canada began its cycle of interest rate cuts in the summertime and now ending the year with 2 consecutive jumbo-sized cuts, as they're often called, more than the single step of the cautionary 25 basis points for the second time in a row. Now a 50 basis point cut, and the decision marks the 5th consecutive reduction since June. According to the Bank of Canada Governor Tiff Macklem, the central bank opted for the 2 large cuts for 2 reasons in particular, now down to 3.25%. Although he did mention the team did debate the option of that smaller step of the 25 basis points. So in terms of the second straight jumbo cut, the rates no longer need to be restrictive, according to the Bank of Canada, as the economy has slowed, felt the burden on borrowing of higher interest rates. Inflation has been heading mostly downward, now consistently within that 2% target range. And secondly, with the economy remaining in excess supply and the growth outlook softer than projected in October, the Bank of Canada wants to see growth pick up to absorb unused capacity in the economy. And that growth pickup, good news for consumers and businesses, as the cost of borrowing going down. As you're seeing the rate, the Bank of Canada has cut its interest rate from 5% in the summertime, now down to 3.25% to end the year.
Now, there is a lot of uncertainty, especially surrounding the Trump tariff threat, questions about where our economy is heading. What is the BOC signaling on what's to come?
Ultimately, that Trump tariff threat right now, Michelle, is a big wild card in all of this, a big unknown, as the Bank of Canada is now eyeing a slower pace of these cuts. The latest decision now brings the central bank's rate down to 3.25%, as we mentioned, within its so-called neutral range, where ultimately it's a level that is neither too restrictive nor stimulative for the economy. But there are several uncertainties as we look ahead into 2025 that could drastically change the outlook, notably, as you mentioned, the threat of highly disruptive U.S. tariffs. Here's more from Bank of Canada Governor Tiff Macklem on that potential.
The economic outlook is clouded by the possibility of new tariffs on Canadian exports to the United States. No one knows how this will play out in the months ahead, whether tariffs will be imposed, what exemptions get agreed, or whether retaliatory measures will be taken. This is a major new uncertainty.
Michelle, so a big uncertainty right there, but the Bank of Canada likely not done cutting interest rates. But in the new year, the next interest rate announcement in January, very likely at the more cautionary 25%, like the 0.25, the 25 basis point cut versus the 50 basis point jumbo oversized cuts that we've been seeing the last 2 times. And so that is kind of where we're looking at with the outlook. Lots of uncertainty, but this is where the Bank of Canada stands right now, Michelle.
Makes you wonder what the new year will bring. CTV's Scott Hurst live for us in the CTV National Newsroom. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Well, he was the most wanted man in America, and overnight, a suspect was charged with the murder of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. Luigi Mangione is being held in a Pennsylvania prison, facing charges for gun possession and lying to police. With more, here's CTV's Joy Malbin from Washington.
Arriving in court in handcuffs, Luigi Mangione was shouting, struggling with officers in Pennsylvania. New pictures show the 26-year-old eating breakfast at that McDonald's before a 911 tip led police to arrest him.
He didn't even think twice about it. We knew that was our guy. Once we found out his identity, we took it from there.
They asked if he'd been to New York, and officers say he was nervous and began shaking. Overnight, prosecutors charged Mangione with murder for last week's targeted killing of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. Searching his backpack, officers found a ghost gun similar to the weapon used to kill Thompson, along with multiple fake IDs, $10,000 in cash, and a handwritten manifesto slamming United Healthcare. He wrote, "These parasites had it coming. I do apologize for any strife or trauma, but it had to be done." From a high school valedictorian and privileged upbringing, now accused of murder. Family and friends are stunned and distraught by his arrest, saying he became reclusive and was reported missing last month.
He confirmed that he had surgery, and he sent me the x-rays. It looked heinous, with just giant screws going into his spine.
I don't think anyone should feel bad about this.
Thompson's killing unleashed a torrent of hate online against the health insurance industry, and the vigilante in the mask hailed as a hero.
In America, we do not kill people in cold blood to resolve policy differences. Hear me on this. He is no hero.
Mangione was denied bail at a court hearing and will fight extradition back to New York, where he faces that murder charge. Joy Malbon, CTV News, Washington.
A Nevada judge who attacked a Nevada man who attacked a judge in a dramatic courtroom confrontation has been sentenced to between 26 and 65 years in jail. The courtroom camera caught the moment when Deobra Redden jumped over the judge's desk last January. He punched court personnel before being dragged away. Just moments before the attack, Redden was asking the court for leniency for a separate felony battery case. His lawyer says he was not taking prescribed medication for his schizophrenia at the time of the attack.
President-elect Donald Trump has said the U.S. should stay out of the ongoing conflict in Syria after the ouster of Bashar al-Assad. But the defense secretary says Washington remains engaged.
We're going to remain in close contact with our partners in the region. And we're going to, as things occur, we're going to consult with them and ensure that we're doing the right things to protect our interests and respond to whatever the situation is that unfolds. In the meantime, as you've heard me say, my number one priority is protection of our troops.
Secretary Austin said it also remains a U.S. priority to keep ISIS from re-emerging. The changes in Syria were also welcomed by the UK's Prime Minister today.
Can I start by welcoming the fall of Assad? The people of Syria suffered for far too long under his brutal regime. Mr. Speaker, what comes next is far from certain. We've been talking to regional and global allies to ensure that it is a political solution that protects civilians and minorities and absolutely rejects terrorism and violence.
The rebel-linked caretaker prime minister in Syria says the transition of power will be challenging. Mohammed al-Bashir says he's aiming to bring back millions of Syrian refugees, protect all citizens, and provide basic services. But he acknowledges it will be difficult because Syria lacks foreign currency. This after more Israeli airstrikes on key military installations. Israel says it has taken out most of Syria's strategic weapons stockpiles and destroyed its navy.
Staying in Syria, the new administration has taken over the country's main international airport after security forces of the deposed Bashar al-Assad government and staff withdrew, grounding flights and stranding passengers. The travel hub has not been functional since, but officials say they are working to bring it back online, citing the vital role it might play in bringing international delegations and missions into the country. Jess?
It is unsettled as we head throughout the day today, so keep the umbrella handy, but also the winter coat because temperatures are set to drop dramatically as we head into this evening. Just back to seasonal, but it has been so warm as of late, it will feel pretty shocking. Right now, though, it's pretty mild as we head into the afternoon, sitting at 5 degrees. A breezy westerly wind becomes an even breezier southwesterly wind as we head in towards the second half of our day. Coming up, I'll have a full look at your long-range forecast. We'll break down the different types of precipitation, the fog, the wind, the rain, all of it, coming up after the break.
Well, weather-wise, at least it wasn't too chilly outside. Maybe a lighter winter jacket, but things are going to change.
My car was saying 10 degrees. That's got to be wrong. That's really double digits in December.
And when your car is sitting, probably a little different. The temperature inside is always a little bit warmer in our vehicles. But even this time of year, we are still wildly above where we should be. But the drop tonight is going to feel so drastic. So keep in mind, we could see some flash freezing taking place because it's going to be from 5 degrees down to -4, -5. And we are kind of watching the winds change with that as well. But it will be breezy this afternoon, tonight, and into the day tomorrow. Weather is brought to you by the Presler Law Firm. Injury lawyers you don't pay unless they win. Now, it's not a terrible start to the day if you want to get out and go skating. It's not too bad out there because it is quite mild. We're getting a break from some of that shower activity, but it is going to get windy and it is going to get cold as we head into that second half of our day. Even with a more southwesterly wind into the afternoon, it is just so breezy out there. We're going to see a bit of a cold front make its way through, prompting some lake effect flurry activity. Heavier for our friends along those eastern shorelines of Lake Huron and Georgian Bay, but 'tis the season to be traveling. And if you're heading out, just take care. Right now, though, 4 degrees. Honestly, it's not too bad. We're sitting at 2 through Windsor, 1 in Ottawa. Anywhere north of Sudbury, though, it is cold. And up towards Red Lake along that border with Manitoba, absolutely freezing at -24. Completely different story here in southern Ontario, the GTA, and in the city. This afternoon, we'll sit around 5 degrees. We should be at 2. Really, everybody's still quite mild as we hit this midpoint of our week. But as we head into this evening, we see a pretty drastic drop, and we'll get down to about -4. But the wind chill tonight is aggressive. It'll feel like -13, so feeling significantly cooler out there. Frostbite can happen very quickly when it gets this cold. And as these temperatures drop, we see the cold front come through. That's where we have the chance for that lake effect flurry activity, prompting a number of snow squall watches and warnings. Again, it really depends on where you are along the eastern shorelines of Lake Huron and Georgian Bay as to how much snow you're going to see. But that borderline really stops as you approach kind of anywhere close to the GTA. So for us, falling more as rain. For our friends a little bit further west, they're seeing some pretty significant snow and wind. As we head throughout the day today, we see that system that brought the showers early on and, well, late yesterday and then early on today push its way east. That low makes its way across with the cold front, and that's what's pushing all of that lake effect snow in towards our area. Again, the bulk of it hitting Lake Huron, Georgian Bay, and those kind of surrounding communities. For us, as we head throughout the day today, again, a bit of a break this afternoon, the chance of maybe some light flurries north and east of the city. But overall, the bulk of the flurry activity, again, Lake Huron, Georgian Bay, and those surrounding communities. So Tobermory down towards areas a little closer to Waterloo region and then out through Barrie. Heading in towards the evening, though, we get a little bit of a break into our Thursday morning cloud cover, but again, heavier snow in those designated areas under the snow squall warnings. And then as we head into the afternoon, actually a decent amount of sunshine out there. We head into the evening, again, the cloud cover, the flurry activity staying north of us. But overall, it is the time of year where you have to really pay attention to the conditions where you're going, because it can change very drastically. You head north of the 401, and you guys know if you're driving up there, that line really does separate some of that kind of more extreme weather. For now, though, it is relatively mild here in the city, and we're looking at more in the way of just a rain-snow mix, likely melting on contact as we head in towards the evening. But as temperatures drop tonight and we step into the day tomorrow, because it gets so cold, there's the potential of that little bit of freezing out there, maybe a little black ice. So just give yourself extra time for the commute tonight and tomorrow. Into our Thursday, again, that chance of active weather in the morning, and then we have lots of sunshine. It's not warm sunshine, but it's sunshine. As we head into Friday, much of the same, but we warm right back up as we head into your Saturday and Sunday. Sunday, watching for the chance of a little messy weather, which really begins Saturday night. And then as we step into next week, it's like that cool down never happened. We get back to 4 degrees, 5 degrees, and we are holding on to the likelihood of maybe a green Christmas, at least in the GTA. Hopefully this helps you plan for now. Nathan, Michelle, send things back over to you.
All right. Thank you, Jess. Nearly 20,000 residents are under evacuation orders or warnings as a wildfire threatens the wealthy California enclave of Malibu.
There are now 1,500 firefighters working around the clock to try to put out this destructive wildfire.
So far, the Franklin fire has destroyed at least 7 structures, with another 9 damaged. Celebrities, including Dick Van Dyke, Cher, and Mark Hamill, have either had to flee or go into lockdown.
2 weeks until Christmas, and in some parts of Canada, trees are harder to find. Christmas trees are actually a big export for the country, but as CTV's Paul Hollingsworth found out, there are challenges with supply.
If every picture tells a story, these are clearly snapshots of Christmas tree lots that have been picked clean.
We just wanted to make sure we didn't have any trees left over. I mean, it's a fine line.
Brad Vino ordered a new load of trees, and he's hoping supplies last long enough so he could stay open longer than last year.
We closed on the 16th, which was a bit early for us, just because we weren't sure if we were going to have enough business to sell out of more trees.
Inflation and economic conditions are causing some angst in the evergreen industry. It's difficult to predict how much money people can spend, especially on a Christmas tree.
Prices for people to rent and so on have skyrocketed. So, I mean, there's less money for people to spend, that's for sure.
John Vantoff doesn't know how long this lot will stay open. So far, sales are brisk.
I'll be probably a couple thousand.
A reusable artificial tree could make more financial sense, but not for this shopper.
For us, it's a little bit of that nostalgia effect where we like to have the smell of the tree.
Exporting Christmas trees has also become big business. The balsam fir tree is grown in Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and parts of Quebec. Trees are packed by the thousands and shipped to the U.S., Europe, and as far away as China.
We grow the most, and we have a great infrastructure for sending them out. And they're world-renowned for their quality.
Vantoff says there's a huge demand for these trees south of the border, which could help make up for any potential losses based on supply issues in Canada. Paul Hollingsworth, CTV News, Halifax.
Coming up, cases of a rare tumor is on the rise. What you need to know after the break. In South Korea, there's growing fallout from the president's controversial and short-lived imposition of martial law last week. Police said Wednesday they were denied entry to search President Yoon Suk-yeol's office as part of an investigation following his sudden decree. Investigators, who have asked to remain anonymous, said they were unable to enter the office on the grounds of official and military secrets. So far, efforts in Parliament to impeach Yoon have fallen short, but haven't been abandoned as he faces a ban on leaving the country.
And Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is back in court today for the second day in his long-running corruption trial. Netanyahu has been accused of bribery, fraud, and breach of trust. On Tuesday, he took the witness stand for the first time, where he railed against the media. Netanyahu is the first sitting prime minister to be charged with a crime and has dismissed the case as a witch hunt. Turning to health news now, and acoustic neuromas are a rare form of tumor.
But as CTV's health reporter Pauline Chan tells us, cases are on the rise.
I'm retired and trying to have fun being retired.
Fun for Gwen Pinto used to be sports and traveling until she was diagnosed with an acoustic neuroma last year. They're sometimes called vestibular schwannomas.
Acoustic neuromas are benign tumors that grow along the covering of the vestibular nerve, which is the balance nerve in the brain.
The non-cancerous tumors grow slowly, but sometimes they can become so big they affect other structures in the brain, like those for hearing, causing hearing loss, ringing in the ears, balance problems, even facial numbness.
And it affects not only your balance, but your whole perception of how your day is feeling. So your head feels a little bit wonky.
For many patients like Gwen, a watch and wait approach is recommended, but for others, radiation or radiosurgery to shrink the tumor may be needed. Therapies such as vestibular rehab may also help. It's a rare tumor, says Dr. Farshad Nasiri, but numbers are on the rise.
Roughly between 1 in 50,000 or 1 in 100,000 people might develop an acoustic neuroma, and that's a very rare tumor to occur in the brain. What we're now seeing is more and more people have access to MRI scans. We're discovering these incidentally.
And when they're found, they still must be dealt with.
And I think seeking information from your healthcare providers is going to be very important, but also visiting organizations like the Acoustic Neuroma Association of Canada and partnering with them and learning from their resources.
Dr. Nasiri says with so many patients on a watch and wait approach, supports like the association become even more important. Pauline Chan, CTV News.
Holiday overload is right around the corner. There are parties to attend, gifts to buy, and guests to entertain.
If you're feeling overwhelmed, you're not alone. A lot of people are short on time, money, and cheer this time of year. CTV's Emma Convey reports.
It's the most wonderful time of the year, and for some, it's the most stressful.
It's just stressful trying to get things done, and you go to the malls, they're overcrowded, understaffed. It's just horrible, but
Mental wellness expert Julie Cass says pressures add up.
The holidays can be a really stressful time of year. We have extra demands on our plate. There's extra spending, which creates financial strain. And we also have more obligations, or the sense of obligation. So I think for many people, there's an increase in stress and anxiety.
And everything costs money.
Definitely spending money is a stressful part of it. It's trying to budget all of that on top of every other expense is a lot.
The average Canadian has over $4,000 in credit card debt and all kinds of personal loans and car loans. It's just puts a lot of pressure on people.
Including pressure to keep up.
Family pressure, friends, the latest things people are buying. Of course, technology is a big cost, but I think that a lot of Canadians are for sure not able to and cannot afford to spend much this time of year.
Etiquette expert Jay Reamer says you don't have to do it all. Attending a holiday gathering is not mandatory, but if you choose to go.
If you're only seeing somebody once or twice a year and they're going to the trouble to have a nice party and that you've been invited, contributing in a small way by giving a hostess present is appropriate.
As far as gift giving goes,
there should be an understanding between two people whether they want to exchange gifts. And if that is absent, it's optional then.
Cass says shifting your mindset can help you cope.
I get to go buy gifts. I get to go to this holiday function. I get to make dinner for my family versus the feeling of I have to do this, I have to do that. So if you just switch that little word in your head, it'll change your energy.
It also helps to have a plan to avoid stress and awkward situations.
Work with your family and friends to make sure everyone's on the same page about what you want to do. Budget well ahead of schedule, and then take time for self-care.
Still to come, more on the Bank of Canada's interest rate cut announcement this morning. Why the pace of cuts are now likely to slow.
Get Toronto's top stories, breaking news alerts, and watch live. Download the CTV News app.
The Bank of Canada cut its key interest rate again, citing a soggy economy, but it warned the pace of cuts will probably slow.
Andrew Bell of BNN Bloomberg brings us the latest in business.
Hello there. As expected, the Bank of Canada has cut its benchmark rate by 0.5 percentage point to 3.25%. It's the second jumbo cut in a row. The bank cited weaker than expected economic growth and a deteriorating outlook. However, Bank Governor Tiff Macklem said with rates now substantially lower, quote, "We anticipate a more gradual approach to further cuts." Lower rates typically depress a currency, but the Canadian dollar rose slightly to about 70.7 US cents. But more cuts may well be coming. Desjardins economist Randall Bartlett warned that, quote, "Given the impending wall of mortgage renewals and worsening economic outlook, we remain of the view that the bank will need to reduce the policy rate to 2% by early 2026. And finally, shares in Roots rose 10%. Profit per share in the retailer's latest quarter jumped to 6 cents from 1 cent a year earlier. CEO Megan Roach said, quote, "Although we are still early in the fourth quarter, our trends remain strong. The shares are still down about 10% this year." That's the latest in business. I'm Andrew Bell of BNN Bloomberg.
Discount carrier Flair Airlines confirms its chief financial officer is facing involuntary manslaughter charges in connection with a deadly crash in the U.S. last February.
Sumant and Anindita Rao have a long-standing, repeated pattern of allowing teenagers to drink in their home.
Authorities say 50-year-old Sumant Rao and his wife watched their daughter and her teenage friends drink at their home in the Atlanta area, then allowed them to get behind the wheel, leading to a crash that killed an 18-year-old. Flair says it was aware of the situation. Rao only joined the airline back in August.
If you plan on renting a car over the holidays, it's important to make sure you have the proper insurance in case something happens.
You may have coverage through your own policy, a credit card, or you could have to purchase additional insurance from the rental company. CTV's Pat Foran has this consumer alert.
Vishwa Patel of Scarborough rented a car with friends in Saskatchewan for 6 days to drive to Banff, Alberta. On the 5th day, they got caught in a major hailstorm.
Our car was parked outside, and because of that, front and rear windshield was damaged.
The hailstones were large enough to smash car windshields and windows, and many vehicles were damaged.
That hailstorm lasted for like around 10 minutes, and it was a baseball-sized hailstorm.
Patel was told to take the car back to the Alamo rental company, and he was given a different vehicle. He paid a $500 deductible and was told they would settle the matter later. But Patel was shocked to find out the total cost of the hail damage was more than $18,000.
That was like totally surprising for us.
Patel did not have car rental insurance with his insurance company or his credit card, and he didn't purchase additional coverage with Alamo.
We didn't get protection for that.
Your auto insurance policy will cover you for damage caused to a rental vehicle if you purchased that coverage.
The Insurance Bureau of Canada says you may have rental coverage through your own policy or your credit card, or you may have to purchase additional coverage from the rental company. Policies may also have limitations of the size and value of the vehicle you can rent.
Find out exactly what the coverage is, because the coverage may not be the same from one rental company to the next.
When CTV News reached out to Alamo, a spokesperson said customers are financially responsible for damage damage or theft that occurs during a rental transaction, we are billing the customer $17,982 after the $500 deductible is applied. This repair estimate was provided by an independent third party. Patel says a collection agency is now after him to pay up, and he says it's money he doesn't have.
I am not able to pay that much money. It's too big for a person like me.
Pat Foran, CTV News.
A bankruptcy judge in Texas has rejected a bid by The Onion to buy Alex Jones's Infowars. The Onion planned to transform Infowars from an anti-government conspiracy theories website into a satirical platform. The decision means Jones can continue to operate his far-right media business. His assets are being auctioned off to cover his $1.2 billion settlement with the families of the victims of Sandy Hook. The family successfully sued Jones for defamation over his claim the school shooting was a hoax.
The Maple Leafs were looking to avoid a third straight loss when they took on the New Jersey Devils last night.
And a race for the loose puck, it's Matthews. In comes Austin Matthews. He can win it. Scores! Austin Matthews, breakaway goal! And the Leafs win it 2-1.
How about that? Austin Matthews was the hero for the Leafs. He scored the overtime winner, lifting the team to a 2-1 victory. The Leafs play the Anaheim Ducks tomorrow.
The Blue Jays have acquired infielder Andres Jimenez in a trade with the Cleveland Guardians. Jimenez and reliever Nick Sadland are heading to Toronto in exchange for infielder Spencer Horwitz and prospect Nick Mitchell. Jimenez is a defensive specialist, earning 3 Gold Gloves and a Platinum Glove in his time with Cleveland. He was also an All-Star in 2022.
Coming up, a Canadian connection to a popular film at movie theaters. CTV catches up with a dancer featured in Wicked.
A woman in Vancouver did not let an emergency C-section or a newborn baby stop her from seeing Taylor Swift in concert.
Knowing that he was healthy coming out, that was a big thing. But I was like, no, I'm not ready. I have Taylor Swift tomorrow.
Erin Button's baby came 6 weeks early, and she bought tickets for the show a year prior. Nurses encouraged her to go. Now, she says it was an experience she can't wait to tell her baby boy Wesley about one day.
Well, Wicked is one of the year's highest grossing films, and it features many very talented performers.
That includes a dancer from Regina. CTV's Hallie Mandrick has the story.
Daniela Ray Beltrami has been dancing since she was 2 years old. When she was in high school, she moved to Toronto, and her dancing career took off. Now, people can catch her as a background performer in the hit film Wicked.
It was physically hard, creatively incredible, like watching the choreographers come up with this and just being like, they're coming up right now with choreography that's going to be known for decades potentially. Like, that was really cool to be like, I'm in this room right now.
Beltrami came across the opportunity while in London after reaching out to the film's choreographer, Christopher Scott, calling the job offer equal parts unexpected and exciting.
He just responded the next day being like, I would love to have you on it. Send me your agent's info. And at the time I didn't even have an agent in London. So I was like, oh my God, like I need to get an agent. I need to get this going. And yeah, so that's how it happened.
Growing up in Regina, Beltrami honed her skills at several different studios, including Youth Ballet of Saskatchewan and Class Act Studios. While she always knew dance was her passion, the dream often seemed out of reach.
When I have moments where I'm like, this is really hard, should I keep going? I think back about that girl in Regina that just wanted it so bad. And I'm like, okay, let's just keep going for her because she would be amazed at what was happening.
As for what's next, Beltrami has since performed as a background dancer for Snoop Dogg's Canadian tour and is now hoping to spend some time focusing on her work as a choreographer. Hallie Mandrick, CTV News, Regina.
I think Snoop is everywhere, isn't he?
He is, absolutely.
We love to see it. And it's great that,
if you're used to the cold weather and you're living in Regina right now, it's not so bad. Here, it doesn't feel like it does in Regina, but we are going to cool down significantly. But it really is just back to seasonal. It has just been so warm for the past couple of weeks that it hasn't really felt much like December at all. As we head in towards the evening, though, we do take a drastic dip down, but that is just back to where we should be for this time of year. But it is going to be windy, so keep that in mind. Now, we are looking at a little messy weather making its way through southern Ontario. We get a bit of a break midday before temperatures cool, and we watch for some lake effect snow. Still really impacting those communities along those eastern shorelines of Lake Huron and Georgian Bay. And between now and Friday, they could see in some areas up to 80 centimeters. It is really challenging when you have these snow squalls because they come fast and furious. So if you're traveling today, tomorrow, and then towards the end of the week, just be careful. 4 degrees right now here in the city, nice and mild, but the wind is going to pick up this afternoon, and it doesn't stop until tomorrow. At least though we get a bit of a break into our Thursday with a little sunshine late morning, early afternoon, but it ain't warm, so layer up if you're making any plans to spend any time outdoors.
All right, good to know. Thank you, Jess. And that is CTV News at noon. Remember, you can get Toronto's breaking news all day long on CP24 and at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Jessica Smith and all of us here, have a pleasant afternoon. I'm Michelle Today.
And I'm Nathan Downer. Be sure to join us later for CTV News at 5 and 6. Have a great afternoon.